I'm Carson Horn, and it's time for another edition of Talkin' Tumors, where I break down the latest happenings in Auburn athletics. Let's get rolling. Everyone wants to talk about the KenPom 2025-2026 preseason rankings. I'm just kidding. I wish that's what we were going to talk about today, but I know many of you want to talk about Auburn football and what was yet another painful loss this past Saturday. So yes, that is what we'll spend the majority of today's episode of Talkin' Tumors on. I am Carson Horn. Thank you so much for being tuned in to this episode. Really appreciate it. If you haven't already, I'd ask you please like and subscribe to the show. It would mean a lot. These aren't necessarily the most fun or the most enjoyable shows to do, but hey, we're here to talk about Auburn athletics, and good or bad, we will be here to break it all down. And yes, we will have some time at the end of the show to talk a little bit about Auburn basketball and the exhibition game against Oklahoma State this coming up Wednesday. But let's not waste any more time. Let's dive into Auburn football and the loss to Georgia this past Saturday. Auburn lost this game 20-10. Let's start out with the positives, because there weren't that many, before we have to get into the negatives of this game and what all went wrong for Auburn in this one. But the positives were, it was an electric atmosphere in Jordan-Hare Stadium. Yet again, Auburn fans brought it. They showed up despite the poor results from Auburn so far this season, the disappointing results from Auburn so far this season. You knew the Auburn family was going to show up. You knew Jordan-Hare was going to be rocking. It was a great environment. The Auburn fan base did everything they could to will this team to a victory, to will this team to a win. Unfortunately, Auburn could not deliver the Auburn fans a victory here. But the atmosphere was great. Of course, you had the Cam Newton retirement ceremony. He wanted a win more than anything in this game. He didn't want it to just be his retirement ceremony. Unfortunately, Auburn wasn't able to get the win, but it was great to see him back, great to see him there with his family and his kids. He's one of the greatest Auburn players in Auburn history, of course, Auburn football history, had one of the greatest college football seasons of all time. So he deserved to have his jersey retired. It was a great ceremony, and super glad that he got to have that moment, and Auburn fans got to participate and be there for that. So super happy for him. That was the positives of the outside environment. I hate that we have to talk about that when discussing the positives, but when the game and the product on the field isn't as good as you would hope, the positives have to come from a little bit of an outside source here. However, on the field, this was a good start to the game for Auburn. Auburn really played about as well as you could for the first almost 30 minutes of the game. For the first 28 and a half or so minutes of this game, Auburn played really good football. Auburn was, quite frankly, controlling and dominating this game against Georgia for the first 28 and a half minutes or so. However, we all know the turning point of this game. With a minute 39 left in the first half, Auburn is about to go up 17-0. Jackson Arnold's looking to quarterback sneak it in on about the 1-yard line. Jackson Arnold's looking to sneak it in. The ball gets knocked out, according to the officials. Georgia recovers. Georgia goes down, has a 12-play drive for 88 yards, and kicks a field goal to make it 10-3 at half. Prior to that drive, prior to that fumble, Georgia had run 12 plays of offense and had 21 yards of total offense in the game. They had 12 plays of 88 yards just on that final drive of the first half alone. Now, before I get into anything else about this game, let me just go ahead and try to address the officiating right off the top, because I know that is what people want to talk about plenty. And when we had the debacle of officiating in the Oklahoma game, I addressed it at the start of the breakdown. Just to get it out of the way, just go ahead and knock out that caveat so we don't have to continue to talk about it as we move forward, breaking down this game. And the officiating in this game was horrendous. It was so bad. Way too many reviews, way too many missed calls, and it's quite frankly, it's inexcusable. It goes back to what we talked about after the Oklahoma game, just rinse and repeat. It should not happen. It's extremely disappointing. It's extremely frustrating that SEC officiating, to be as big of a deal as SEC football is, for the officiating to be as bad as it's been, and for there to be such a lack of accountability, it's a joke. It's extremely frustrating, and I hate it for the Auburn players and the Auburn coaches. This continues to be an issue, and unfortunately, Auburn's been on some bad sides, has called some tough breaks. Now, there were some calls that went against Georgia in this game too, but certainly a couple of tough breaks for Auburn. The timeout situation with Kirby Smart, never in my life have I ever seen anything like that, where Kirby Smart says he wasn't calling a timeout, he was clapping, which maybe that is what he intended to do, to clap. He was saying the Auburn secondary was clapping, but this is not a clap. This is a clap. So it was not a clap. If you start clapping like this, if you've ever seen anyone clap like this, you let me know, because I have not. So that was something. I can't say I've ever seen that before. But going back to this call and the moment this call was made, it flipped the game. It was tough. It was an extremely difficult call. I don't think it was as obvious as some Auburn fans have made it out to be. Now, with that being said, do I think it was a touchdown? I do. But I think it's a fair argument to say it wasn't. It probably just, your opinion probably just depends on what side you fall on, if you're an Auburn fan or a Georgia fan. So I do think it was a tough call. If it was called a touchdown on the field, I do think it would have been upheld. Since it wasn't, the call was upheld as a fumble. But this was a turning point in the game. And from then on, this was Auburn's offense after this happened. So Auburn not accounting for the QB kneel at the end of the first half. But after that, Auburn went 5 plays, 17 yards, and a turnover on downs. Auburn had 3 plays for -2 yards and a punt. Auburn had 3 plays for 6 yards and a punt. Auburn went 3 plays for 4 yards and a punt. And then, of course, you had the final drive of the game. I'm not including that. I think Auburn had about 25 yards, and then the game was over at that point. I mean, just the script of this game was completely flipped. Remember, I mentioned that Georgia had 21 yards of total offense before this fumble happened. And then it was just Auburn barely had 40 yards total offense in the second half. And again, majority of that came on that final drive when the game was already won at that point for Georgia. Just completely changed the game at that point. It was like watching 2 different games. It really was a completely different script from that moment on. And it was yet another painful loss. And I want to play this clip from what I had to say last week on the show when I made my prediction for this game. Here's the clip. However, for my prediction and what I think is the most likely scenario, I think this is going to be an extremely close game, but I think Georgia wins it. I think it's going to be the same story that we've had now going on 3 years, where Auburn is going to battle, where the defense is going to play well, where Auburn offensively is going to have a chance to make plays to win the game, but they're just not going to be able to get over that hump. Okay. So what does this mean? Auburn, yet again, lost another close game, lost another game that they had a chance to win in the end. The offense just really could not do enough. Look, Auburn's defense gave up 20 points. The final drive where they couldn't get off the field on third down, yeah, that was a tough drive for the defense. You needed better from them at that point. But I'm not going to sit here and criticize DJ Durkin's defense when they are the only reason Auburn has been competitive and been able to have chances to win these last 3 games. So I'm not going to sit here and complain about them. That would be nitpicky, and I don't think it's fair to them. They are the reason these games have been close, and Auburn has had a chance to win them. So what does this mean for Auburn? Now that you are sitting at 3-3, when we talked about this in the summer when we were doing our season preview, we thought 3-3 was going to put Auburn in a tough spot. You thought that you could go 4-2 in these first 6 games. You'd be sitting in a pretty good spot, at least to go 8-4 if that was your goal. We thought if Auburn went 3-3 in the first 6 games, it was going to be a tough spot to be in if you're Auburn to have the season that you were hoping to have. So now Hugh Freeze sits at 14-17 overall as Auburn's head coach. He's 5-14 in SEC play. He is 9-9 at Jordan-Hare Stadium. What is supposed to be, and I still believe, is one of the best home field advantages, one of the best environments in all of college football. And Hugh Freeze is 9-9, 500 at Jordan-Hare Stadium. He is 1-11 against ranked opponents as his time as Auburn's head coach, and he is 2-10 in games decided by 10 points or less. After the game, Hugh Freeze said this, and as one of his quotes he said after the game, he said, quote, "I think it's very clear we find ways to not win football games." I've been saying it now, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn here. I know I played the clip earlier. I'm not trying to do that. There have been plenty of others who have said the same thing I've been saying. It wasn't hard for anyone to see, except maybe for Hugh Freeze. It took him a little bit longer to see this. But for 2 years now, we've been saying on this show, Auburn doesn't have a winning character about them. They don't have a winning mindset about them. They find ways to lose games instead of finding ways to win them. And I'm glad Hugh Freeze realized that. I wish he had realized it a little sooner. Maybe he had. Maybe he just had not shared that publicly. But he's right. Auburn finds ways to lose games. Winning cultures and winning teams and winning programs, they find ways to win games. Georgia had a really tough first half. They figured out a way to flip the momentum of the game and then just dominate the rest of the way. They're a winning culture. They're a winning program. They didn't play their best football, but they found a way to win because they know how to win. And they had no doubt in their mind. Their mindset, I'm sure, in that locker room was like, hey, we're going to win this game. I have no doubt about that. Auburn's mindset isn't that way. Coach Rick Falk spoke after the game and said, yeah, that was a turning point. We just really couldn't get over that. I'm paraphrasing. Couldn't get over that play and that game-changing moment. That's unacceptable. Completely unacceptable. I told someone when I saw Hugh Freeze's halftime interview going into the half, he was very frustrated with the officials. Justifiably, understandably, I get it. His job's on the line. He feels like his team got screwed. Completely fair to be frustrated. But I said, hey, if that's the message at halftime, Auburn's lost this game. You can't go in there and say, woe is me, guys. We played so great. Those officials out there, they're just screwing us. We're out of luck. Nothing we can do. Get down on ourselves. This is a woe is me type of mindset. It's going to result in losses. Instead of going in there and say, hey, who cares? Move on. It didn't go our way. Tough luck. Let's get back after it. Let's go win this football game. We're the better team. Auburn doesn't have that mindset. Auburn hasn't had that mindset under Hugh Freeze. We have now going on 3 years of a sample size. Hugh Freeze has not been able to flip this Auburn culture into a culture of winning, into a mindset of winning. There is a skill to it. Auburn doesn't have it. Auburn hasn't had it. English is hard sometimes. And I don't believe Auburn will have it under Hugh Freeze. It's extremely disappointing. It's extremely frustrating because you do have a talent roster that should have better results, that should be producing better results than it is. And there's no excuses. And Hugh Freeze, again, he hasn't made them. To his credit, he understands that this team should be winning more games than they are, should be better than they are, but they're not. And ultimately, it falls on him. So as I said last week, and I'll repeat it this week, as I'm recording this on a Sunday afternoon, James Franklin has been fired at Penn State. Hugh Freeze has not been fired as of the time I'm recording this at Auburn. But as I said last week, and I'll continue to say again, I'm not advocating for anyone to be fired. I don't think that's appropriate. But just from reading the tea leaves, I do think it is a matter of when, not if, with Hugh Freeze. If he loses to Missouri this upcoming weekend, which we'll preview in just a minute, he'll be 0-4 to start SEC play. Auburn is sitting at 3-3. Things just aren't trending well. And so I think he continues each and every game to be coaching for his job. And I do think he'll be hard-pressed to make it past the season if he's able to get to that point again. I'm not an insider. Don't have any information to tell me one way or the other. That's just my gut feeling on it all. But yet again, we're sitting here having talked about a game in which Auburn had plenty of chances to win and could have won a game and yet just could not do it, did not find a way to win it. Despite whatever excuses you want to make, there are no excuses. Auburn should have been able to win this game, should have found a way to win this game, and they didn't. And that continues to be an indictment of where this program is at this moment. And I know Auburn fans are frustrated. And Auburn fans deserve better. Absolutely. Auburn fans continue to show up. They continue to support and pour all their money, their resources, their time into this football program to get this program back to being successful. And the product on the field just isn't good. And Auburn fans deserve better. And hopefully better will come. But it might not be this season, unfortunately. With all that being said, I am going to preview the Missouri game. Auburn will play another game inside Jordan-Hare Stadium this upcoming Saturday. Another night game in Jordan-Hare Stadium. Auburn will face off against Missouri, who is 5-1 on the season, coming off a close loss to Alabama this past Saturday. What's the environment going to be like? I am curious. Auburn fans are going to continue to show up. I don't expect a raucous environment, though. I mean, you're sitting at 0-3. The fans are deflated. The students are deflated. I still think you'll see a pretty full Jordan-Hare Stadium, but it's going to be a stadium that's going to be teetering to start the game. Like I said with the Georgia game, the stadium will be raucous, and then it will be teetering if things started to go poorly. Well, I think the stadium's going to be teetering even before kickoff, and then if you give the stadium a reason to get into it, they will. But I don't think they're going to come in there ready and firing on all cylinders, pumped up, ready for the game, as you might have for some other games out there earlier this year, or the circumstances were different. So I am interested to see how the crowd is for this Missouri game. But just giving you an overview of this Missouri football team, of course, their key players start with their quarterback, Bo Prabula, really athletic guy. He has thrown for over 1,300 yards, 11 touchdowns. He's a really good runner, really good scrambler, really good runner. He's run for 182 yards and 4 touchdowns so far this season. Excuse me as I get a drink here. I've already had 2 over 30-minute phone calls already today, talking plenty about Auburn, so I apologize if my voice is struggling a little bit. I've done a lot of talking today. That's how it goes after a little aside here. I apologize getting off topic slightly. That's how it goes when your sports teams don't perform. I see the memes on social media oftentimes, and I'm sure many of you can relate. Something big happens in your life personally, no text, 1 or 2 from your family. Yeah, 1 or 2 texts. Your favorite team loses, your phone's blowing up all day long. You get plenty of texts. Everybody wants to talk. It's so funny, and that meme has always been funny to me because it is so true. So that's really how it's been today, talking with plenty of friends and others about this game. But I've enjoyed it, and like I said, I still do enjoy doing the show. Back on topic now. I digress. Ahmad Hardy, he's the best running back in the country. He's run for 782 yards this season. Missouri's only played 6 games, and he's already rushed for 782 yards, 9 touchdowns. He's a stud. Transfer from Louisiana Monroe, I believe it was, his past season. Transferred into Missouri. He's really good. The defensive ends from Missouri scare me. These guys are really good. Damon Wilson has 5.5 sacks. Zion Young has 3 sacks. These dudes are game wreckers. They are studs for this Missouri defensive line. So those are a few key players to keep an eye on for the Tigers out of Missouri. As for questions for Auburn, before we get into just the matchups to watch and possible scenarios here, first thing I'm going to be watching for is the fight still there. One thing that I will continue to give Hugh Freeze credit for, as long as it continues to be the case, is the fact this team has not quit on him. They continue to fight despite the outside noise, despite the fan base being frustrated, despite many calling for Hugh Freeze to lose his job. This team continues to fight, continues to give effort for Hugh Freeze. So I give him credit for that. So I'll be interested. Does that continue? Now that the noise is only going to continue to increase, the outside noise, that is. And a lot of questions are going to continue to be asked about the future for Hugh Freeze at Auburn. Does this team quit? Does this locker room quit on him? I don't think it will, but that's something I will be interested in watching. Number 2 is, what about personnel changes? What about a quarterback change? I don't think that would change anything. However, you're sitting at 3-3. Your job's on the line as your Hugh Freeze. Are you going to try something different? Say, you know what? Let me just roll out Ashton Daniels. Let me just roll out Deuce Knight. Let's just see how it goes. I mean, it's worth a try. I don't think that would improve things. I don't think that would make things better. But I'm just curious. Again, you're sitting at 3-3. You're at 0-3 in the SEC. Those are the types of things you do if you're in a desperation mode, which Hugh Freeze and his staff should be in desperation mode at this point in the season. So I am curious. Does Auburn make any personnel changes? I don't know if they will make any anywhere else. I don't really think you can. I mean, you're pretty much locked in along the offensive line. You're pretty much locked in at receiver. So I don't see really anywhere else you can make major personnel changes except for at quarterback. So I am curious. And, by the time you're listening to this podcast, maybe we have more information on this. Maybe someone asked Hugh Freeze at his Monday press conference about this. So again, by the time you're listening to this, the news could be out there one way or the other. But as I am recording this, we don't know, and so that's just something I'm throwing out there that I'm curious about. Okay, matchups to watch in this game. Really, to me, it's fairly simple. I think it comes down to really one thing on both sides of the ball. Which team can run the football better? These two teams, Missouri and Auburn, are actually fairly similar in their makeup. Now, Missouri's strength of schedule been weaker than Auburn's. They've had a little bit of easier schedule. They finally played a really good opponent in Alabama and lost a close game. Had a chance to win that this past Saturday. But overall, Missouri is a team that really runs the ball well. Unlike Auburn, they've stuck to it. They understand their identity, so I give them credit for that. They don't have a downfield passing attack. They really struggle to throw it downfield. Bo Prabula had multiple interceptions in the Alabama game. He has a decent arm. It's just their receivers aren't great, and they struggle to really throw the football. So Missouri relies on the run game, and they're really, really good at it. They don't really try to confuse you too much. You know what they're going to run, and you know what they're going to run, and teams still struggle to stop it oftentimes. So how does Missouri run the football against Auburn's rush defense, which continues to be really good? Auburn is number 8 in the country still in opponents' average yards per rush at 2.6, but Missouri averages 5.9 yards per rush. Can Auburn slow down Ahmad Hardy, Bo Perbula, and this whole Missouri rushing attack? If they can and force Missouri to throw the football, it's going to put Auburn in a good spot defensively. And then vice versa, same thing. Missouri wants to force Auburn to throw the football. They know Auburn cannot throw the ball downfield very well either. And they know Auburn wants to run the ball. Missouri is an excellent run defense, one of the best right now, number 2 in the country in average yards per rush at 2.3. Now, I will say this. I thought Alabama had a pretty good amount of success against Missouri running the football. Now, Bama's average yards per rush was only 2.9. However, I think some of that had to do with some of the sacks that happened in this game. Overall, I think Bama exploited some weaknesses. So can Auburn, who's averaging over, I think it is still over 5 yards per rush. Can Auburn get to running the football with success against Missouri? Whichever team runs it better, again, assuming turnovers and all that kind of break fairly even, I think wins this football game. So can Auburn or can Missouri, whichever team runs the ball better, likely wins the game. Pretty simple to me. Again, that's not accounting for turnovers and things like that. There's other things that play a factor, but that is the biggest matchup for both teams in this game. Can you run the football? Because both offenses are reliant on being able to run the ball. So what are the scenarios for this game and how this game can play out? I think back to 2022. Do you all remember that game? Brian Harsin versus Eli Drinkwitz. Brian Harsin was on the hot seat. It looked like his job was about to be lost. And here came in a Missouri team. Eli Drinkwitz at the time, unlike this year, was also on the hot seat. Missouri was about ready to move on from him. His tenure had not gone well so far. He comes in. It was a game that it looked like neither team wanted to win. Like both teams played so poorly, and both teams, it looked like they were trying to beat themselves. Auburn somehow won that game. It was just in a completely, extremely dumb game, crazy game. Auburn somehow won it. Brian Harsin was able to keep his job for a little bit longer. Of course, he would still lose it a little bit later in the season. But it's just funny that, it comes around, goes around. And now here we are with Hugh Freeze with his job on the line. And here comes into town Missouri. Eli Drinkwitz sitting on the hot seat. They're still in the playoff conversation. But Hugh Freeze, his job is on the line. And he has a chance to extend it a little bit and keep life if he can get this win against Missouri. So I think there's a couple scenarios. The bad scenario here is that Auburn looks defeated. Auburn comes out in this game. They look defeated. They don't play with the same energy and intensity and effort that they have. Pretty much like they melted in on the season, like you saw with Arkansas against Notre Dame before they fired Sam Pittman. If that is the case, then Missouri will win this game, and they'll win it pretty handedly. And they'll find success running the football, and Auburn won't, and it'll look ugly. The other scenario that could play out here is that Auburn does come out. They come out motivated. They come off ticked off. They come out ready to play and say, hey, look, we're still behind Hugh Freeze. He still has support of this locker room, and we're not letting the story of our season be completely written yet. We have another chapter we want to add to this, and we're going to battle, and we're going to find a way to have a successful second half of the season, and it starts with this Missouri game. If Auburn does that, it might not be pretty. It might still be another low-scoring game, but if Auburn sticks to running the football and finds some success doing that, the defense plays well, then yeah, sure, Auburn can win this game, and Auburn can find a way to continue, and Hugh Freeze can continue to keep his job for at least a little while longer. I'm really interested to see how this Auburn team comes out and plays this game. But as for my prediction, you might be surprised to hear this, I'm picking Auburn. I think Auburn's going to win this game. I have not picked Auburn since I guess it was the South Alabama game in week 3. But just gut feeling here, I've been pretty good in predicting Auburn games as of late. And I just think Auburn, I don't think Hugh Freeze has lost this locker room. Assuming he's still the coach come Saturday, I think they're going to play hard. I think this team's limited as far as what they can do offensively, certainly. But I think Auburn will stick to trying to run the football. They'll find some success there. The defense will slow down Missouri's run game. They'll battle, they'll fight, they'll scratch their claw. It won't be pretty, but Auburn somehow walks away with a win, and you're thinking, well, hey, good fight, good effort, way to finally find a way to win a close game here. Will it change the whole trajectory of the season? I don't think that. But I do think Auburn is going to get the win over Missouri this Saturday. Again, another Saturday night in Jordan-Hare Stadium. But buckle up, folks. It's going to be a crazy next couple of weeks. It could be a crazy week this week. I don't know what the future holds for Auburn football. I have my guesses as much as you all do, I'm sure. But there's still a lot to be determined, I think, in the coming days and weeks regarding Auburn football. The good news is Auburn basketball is here. Yes, it's only an exhibition game on Wednesday night. I get it, but man, I am fired up to watch Auburn basketball and to see the start of the Stephen Pearl era. Auburn will face off against Oklahoma State in an exhibition game in Birmingham on Wednesday night at 7 o'clock. Man, this is going to be fun. It's going to be weird. I'll grant you that. It's going to be weird not seeing Bruce Pearl out there, instead seeing Stephen Pearl walk the sideline. Again, we got a little taste of it a few years ago. Bruce Pearl was suspended for 2 games, but it's going to be different. It's going to feel different. It's going to look different, but I'm excited to see this team in action. I referenced at the beginning of the show that the KenPom rankings came out, preseason rankings. If you don't know what KenPom is, an analytics site for college basketball, it's okay if you don't. I like the analytics. I love looking at them. They're really fun for me. I'll reference them. If you watched the show in the past, you know that. I'll reference them throughout the season when talking about Auburn games and this Auburn team. So Auburn came in at 31st in KenPom rankings, which was a little bit lower, I think, than some people thought. I don't know how much is negated because of the loss of Bruce Pearl. Would Auburn have been slightly higher rated if Bruce Pearl was still coaching versus Stephen Pearl? I don't know exactly how it works into the formula there. But Auburn came in at 31st in KenPom. And like I said, I think that's fair for what this team is. Just so much unknown, as we've talked about, with only one returning player in Tahad Pettiford, and then you add in Stephen Pearl in his first year as a head coach. But we'll start to get some answers this upcoming Wednesday. Again, you got to be careful in exhibition games not to take too much from them, because at the end of the day, they are exhibition games, and you're not necessarily going with your normal rotation of players like you would in a real game. But so what am I watching for? So I'm not going to do a big preview of Oklahoma State or anything like that. There's no reason to do that, but I did want to highlight a couple things I'm intrigued by. Because everything's new, I'm really intrigued by everything, but in order to make this into a segment, I did try to narrow it down to just a couple things I wanted to mention. One is, how is Stephen Pearl as the head coach? Do things look different? Yeah, they're going to look different. He's not Bruce Pearl walking the sideline. But how does the team play with him? How is his demeanor as a head coach compared to who he was as an assistant? That's probably the thing I'm most intrigued by, because as an assistant, pretty intense, pretty focused. He never really celebrated anything like that. He was dialed in constantly. He said in his press conference he thought he might dial it back actually some. And I think how he goes after players, how he coaches players, and lets the assistants kind of get on him a little bit more. I don't know if he'll actually do that, because that's easier said than done. But I am interested to see what his demeanor is like and how that evolves from how he was as a assistant coach, and then how he makes adjustments throughout the game. Again, you are the head coach now. The buck stops with you. You're the one to make all the final calls, unlike how it was when you're an assistant. So interested to see how that plays out. Of course, the lineups and the rotations. What the starting rotation is for this game does not guarantee that'll be the start. Does not mean that'll be the starting rotation come Auburn's first game on November 3rd, or come an Auburn game come January. More than likely, it won't be. More than likely, it's going to change. It's going to evolve. Remember, J.P. McGee's last year started multiple games for Auburn. He wasn't even in the rotation come, I think it was January. So things can change. Things evolve. So don't read too much into starting lineups and rotations. Whispers, yeah, but we will. I get it. I'm going to. I know you are too. But let's try not to make too much of it, because the rotations will tighten up. The lineups will change. But I'm interested to see what that first group is out there against Oklahoma State and see how these guys play together. Third thing, style of play. We mentioned it. We think this team's going to play faster, create more turnovers, maybe struggle a little bit more on the defensive end. But how does that look? How does the style of the play look? How do things look with Mike Burgermaster calling probably pretty much every offensive play? He did mostly anyways with Bruce Pearl. But now that Bruce is gone, how does the offense look? How does Auburn look on that end compared to with Bruce Pearl? I'm looking forward to seeing that. And then finally, I just wanted to pick out one player to spotlight for this game, and I decided to go with Elijah Freeman, the Division II transfer. Things have been really good with him lately, it sounds like, based on what Stephen Pearl has said. Seems like he has really improved since the summer. He's a game changer for Auburn. You could argue as high as this ceiling goes, that's how high the ceiling this Auburn basketball team could go, because he can take them to another level. And you add another element of him turning into a really good player, when you combine that with what you think you're going to get out of Todd Pettiford and Keyshawn Hall and Keyshawn Murphy, yeah, this can end up being a really, really good team if Elijah Freeman can take that step forward. So I really cannot wait to watch him play and watch him get after it in this game on Wednesday night. So a lot of questions to be answered. We won't get many answers in the exhibition game, but it will be an Auburn basketball game for the first time since Auburn lost in the Final Four to Florida. So I'm excited. I am very much looking forward to Wednesday night. A little bit of break from Auburn football for Auburn fans and me personally. My Phillies lost in baseball, so it was a tough week for me. So I am looking forward to something a little bit more cheerful, hopefully, in Auburn basketball in this exhibition game on Wednesday night. Just a quick note, Oklahoma State is ranked 69th in KenPom, just to give you an idea. So Auburn, if this game was an actual real game, Auburn would probably be favored by quite a bit against Oklahoma State. But again, it's an exhibition game. I don't know what's going to happen or how exactly it's going to play out, but I am looking forward to watching that game on Wednesday night. Well, we're going to wrap things up there. Thank you all so much for tuning in to this today's episode of Talking Tumors, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening to the podcast. Again, I know we're not in studio like normal. Again, we're still in the process of making some changes, adjusting some things, so just continue to hang tight, if you will, there. But again, I do appreciate you watching or listening. Again, if you haven't already, I please ask you to like and subscribe to the show. It will mean a whole lot if we do get any breaking news on the coaching front at any point within this week or at any time. We'll do the best we can to get something out there quick. But as the time of recording this episode, Hugh Freeze is still the head coach at Auburn, despite everything that is going on around this program and in the college football world. So again, thank you for listening, and we'll be back with another edition next week on Talking Tumors. Thank you for listening to Talkin' Tumors. If you liked what you heard, make sure to subscribe and follow at Talkin' Tumors on social media so you'll never miss an episode. War Eagle.